What's going on, traders? Hope everybody's having a great weekend. Wanted to do some analysis of last week's price action and formulate a game plan for next week. We've got a big week ahead of us with tons of earnings and some interesting economic data coming in. So I wanted to go over that and more on today's video. Let's get into the economic calendar first and the earnings calendar before we get into any of the charts. But a reminder that this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and in no way should be viewed as financial advice. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get into the economic calendar first and take a look at what we have in store for this week. Let me pull that up for us here. All right. Gonna have to zoom in a little bit, I think. All right, here. Nothing on Monday for us scheduled. And Tuesday, not too much really scheduled either. Nothing I'm really too interested in. But Wednesday, July 31st, last day of the month. What do we have here? 2 o'clock FOMC rate decision. A high probability on the Fed funds rate that we see a potential rate cut out of the Fed. So it's going to be very interesting to see if they are right or wrong. And then, of course, we have Powell speaking at 2:30 after the rate decision. So a lot of volatility in store for the last day of the month. Will be very interesting to see what the Fed does and see how the market reacts. First day of the month, August 1st, we have initial jobless claims I will be paying attention to at 8:30. Nothing else really interesting to me for the rest of the day. But Friday, August 1st, here we go. Non-farm payroll coming in 8:30 across the board here. And we definitely going to be paying attention to that as it really sets the tone for the rest of the month. All right, so now let's get into some of the earnings reports that we have for this week. A huge week coming up as far as earnings are concerned. Monday, before the market opened, McDonald's coming in hot. And then there's really not too much else I am interested in. Tillery, kind of the meme stock there after the close on Monday. So that will be a little interesting to see how that reports on the cannabis front. Before the open on Tuesday, we've got SoFi, PayPal, Pfizer, BP, Procter & Gamble, and Merck, JetBlue, kind of closing out most of the airlines there. I think Pfizer, PayPal might be a little interesting. BP, just to see what their numbers are. But after the close, everyone's really going to be paying attention to these names. AMD after the close, Microsoft after the close, the big names there, everybody will be certainly paying attention to. Starbucks will be interesting from the consumer spending angle. And Pinterest as well. We'll see how that affects Meta and Snapchat. Caesars, and then First Solar as well, FSLR. All right, and then Wednesday, everybody's favorite stock to hate and love at the same time, Boeing, coming in before the market opens. Closing out most of the cruise lines, Norwegian also reporting. Pay attention to that as well. Not really a market mover, but just interesting on other fronts, just like kind of Starbucks as far as that discretionary spending is to be concerned and how kind of the consumer is doing overall. Meta then is really the big name. And after the close on Wednesday, Qualcomm as well, another chip name, as well as ARM. So certainly be paying attention to those three as the market closes on Wednesday. But big names, of course, Thursday. Look at this: Amazon, Apple, Intel, Coinbase. Wow. Thursday after the close, just a blockbuster. DraftKings, Roku, kind of second tier there, but still will be interesting. And then Friday before the market open, some of those oil energy names kind of coming in here. Exxon, Chevron, SNDL from the cannabis front. And that's about it as far as what I would be paying attention to, or at least interested in watching at all. So, huge week ahead. Obviously, the notable names there being AMD, Microsoft, Meta, ARM to a slight extent because it's a dovetail off of Nvidia, but of course Amazon and Apple huge there as well. So crazy week ahead, and it should be very interesting to see how the market reacts. And of course, I forgot to mention here Wednesday before the market opens, MasterCard as well, and I think that that's also worth paying attention to the numbers. All right, so with all that out of the way, let's get into some analysis here on the charts, and we're going to start off as always just with the naked chart here and taking a look at how the candle has formed, what's our position, and what's going on just from a raw price action perspective. Well, from the weekly view here, we are still above the daily, the weekly, 9, 20, 50. So short term, this is just a slight correction in the overall trend. We can, certainly look at this for, what's going on here? Why are you freezing on me? We can certainly look at this from this view, right? We've got our swing low here. Another one here. Have an equal high. Higher high. Yeah, marginal lower, marginal higher low. We have our swing high. And what do we have here, right? So in the trend sequence, overall, yes, we are seeing a little bit of a pullback, but what's really going on here? It's just a weekly overall higher low being put in. And we can certainly make the case for a potential bull flag to start forming here, right, into the end of the year, right? And that's kind of my viewpoint overall. We could see a little bit more downside, but I do not think, being an election year, they're gonna have the market down for that. So it would be more likely that eventually we're gonna see something like this. I mean, I'm just gonna throw a wild number out here. Maybe we see 6,000 by the end of the year. I'm not a weatherman, so I'm not really into the idea of forecasting, but I'll just call it out here to see if a weekly bull flag kind of sets up for us, right? But what we say, level to level, always forecasting, waste of time. It's always a if then we do this, if that, we do that. We do another plan. So we always have contingency plans for either side. All right. So as far as the weekly chart, now what are we looking at here? Now, certainly, we've got our swing high, as we mentioned. And now, what do we have here? Right, really overall, in the short term, still, honestly, some might say this is a weekly lower high. I'm not convinced. I would have need to see it close further towards the lows. Personally, I would have need to see it close under here. I mean, it was right on the line. If we actually closed here, I would be more like interested or more apt to say that we are closing on a weekly lower high. But we didn't. We closed right on the line there on ES here. So they're holding on by a thread, right? And we were talking about watching this July 1st low here, and that's pretty much where we closed. I'm going to actually zoom in a little bit for us here. Okay, so that's pretty much, you can see here where we close. We close just above it, right at that 5,500, and we talked about that level last week, certainly as being an important level. So, what am I looking at here overall from the structural standpoint, right? And we'll kind of map this out a little bit before we get into the charts that we already had set up from last week. Well, okay. So we closed back inside of this balance. I'm going to mark this off. So I think that this is really going to be the key here. And that's going to be the low, really, of June, the week of June 17th here. That low being 54.89, 3/4. And I'm pretty close to that, and I'm not going to fix it. But I've called it out there. I mean, anywhere kind of, 2 or 3 points, pretty close. So that's really the line for me, right? We start seeing candles close back under within this gap, right? We talked about that potential gap fill. But, whoops. We start seeing candles like this. This is the most bearish type of scenario here for the market. And, we did kind of fill up that gap. Not much time was spent there trading. But I think that if we stay under that, we have to still consider that more bearish case. Now, if we stay above, which we closed above here, pretty much right on that marker of that 5,500, right? We could still see some more trading potentially up, about into our equilibrium here. It's going to be 55.40, 55.41 if you want to split hairs, right? And then we have the top of this balance structure right at the high of the 17th as well. Okay. So this was obviously a failed attempt. We see this week that we traded up here, right? But we did not get any weekly confirmation. That would have obviously been the most bullish scenario that we could have potentially seen. And I'm still going to mark off here because we're going to have to also pay attention to the week of July 8th lows, right? Because we're going to need to see some acceptance over this for a true reversal really to take place, right? We see a weekly candle close, say, over here. I'm going to be starting to sing a bit of a different tone. And, all this downside momentum right now, it's just a small correction. I mean, we're barely even down. Although, as much as I'm loving VIX, where it is right now. But what is this? From the low of this week, from last week in 2 weeks, 5%. Nothing. Right? Maybe 6% in tech. So that, it's not even 10%. We're, so we have to keep it in context of what's going on right now. That being said, are there some structural things that are wrong with the chart as far as the bull perspective is concerned? Yes, of course. And we'll take it level to level as always and adjust depending on what the chart is telling us. So let's kind of break it down here and let's get a little bit more granular. Let's get into the daily chart, and we will get back into our other charts from last week as well. And you know what? Excuse me. This is not even right. Here we go. So from the daily perspective, you see here we close still within this balance range. So as long as that 54.88 can maintain, we can look for those trades back up a bit higher into that 55.50, potentially about 50 more points, right? We can see today on the on the Friday session, we almost, where do we get? We went to 54.99 quarter. So close to the whole number, but that's, we were talking about that being a potential issue. So very interesting here. We're going to wait and see what goes on. I mean, it's just a tricky week, right? We could see some of this. Earnings could send us plummeting. FOMC could send us rocketing. I have no idea. But what I do know is that if we really start seeing these closes over here, at least from a day trading perspective, I think that this week would be a week that maybe you wouldn't want to be swing trading too much. But from the day trading perspective, I'm going to be setting that daily bias, at least as far as ES is concerned, is whether or not we're over this level. That's going to kind of give me a bit of an idea. Now, again, on the weekly, we are over the daily 9, 20, and 50 here, but on the daily chart, we are below all of these. So that is also something to consider. And the daily 9 right now is sitting basically right at that equilibrium that we were already talking about, at that 55.50. Right? It's about 10 point, 11 points, 12 points away, pretty close. So we'll have to pay attention as it gets back up into this area as well. We can also say, though, that the one thing also to be considered is, here we made our lower low. Now we were talking about price coming up. Remember we said, coming up and then potentially coming back down. You can see here on Thursday we got higher, but Friday we were not able to even match an equal high. So that's a little bit concerning, because now we've put in the low here, and if we just want to look at it, whoops, oh my gosh, boom, this is there and this is lower. You would have at least liked to see an equal high, if not a move into here, into the equilibrium area. We didn't even see it. It's not the best thing, in my opinion. As far as the, we can see here on the volume, selling, selling, selling. Here we had a bit more of that buying pressure. Nothing from the overbought, oversold reading here at all from the daily perspective. Finally, switching back to the weekly, though, seeing a little bit of that weakness from these overbought conditions. We're not even at the end of the month, though, but let's even peek here. Still just massively overall oversold on the monthly, but we'll see how this daily candle closes. Looks kind of like a indecision type of situation going on there. All right, so let's now get into some of the charts that we already had worked out from the last video. And here it is. And we can look at that right now for a bit of context from last week, right? So, what did we say, right? We were talking about the retest of this prior balance here, right? And that's exactly what we got, right? We said if we kind of broke under, we would come back, hit here, in that 50, I believe it was the 54.50, and yes, yeah, that 54.50 I believe is what we were talking about last week. So from this view, how do I delete this? There we go. Okay. So from this view, again, what needs to happen? Need to see these candles over here, here, and we can potentially get those trades here. Short zone, that 5,500, 55.55, anywhere in there, you can look for that potential short. Got to consider that potentiality. If we get over, whoops, and we start, oh gosh, and we start, if we get over and start seeing that acceptance, like so, right, then we'll look for trades back up, real close to 5,600, maybe 55.88, 55.90, 55.85 would be what I'd be looking for. Top of this balance structure. Still overall bearish, you know, in the short term until we get really over this 5,600, in my opinion. And we still would need to, you know, I think the first sign, if we start seeing some daily closes over here, okay, we're over 55.50, you know, we're looking a bit better. But we got to get over this to kind of really neutralize. We got to get over 5,600, 50, yeah, I'm going to just say 5,600. You could make a case for 55.88, but, you know, you got the whole number right there. So you got to consider that. But either way, what I also think here could be the potentiality is, you know, we've seen, well, you know, we've got FOMC and all these earnings. All things being equal, if that wasn't the case, you know, it's just so hard to obviously plan what's going to happen. But, you know, if we didn't have that, I would be more in thinking that we would see something like this. We just made a pretty big move down, right? Why wouldn't we start to rest a bit here? You know, we could even have a range, even like this. But overall kind of stay, you know, within this for a little bit. I mean, this is actually taking us out to September, so probably not that long. But who knows? But just something in this type of pattern for at least a few days. But, you know, earnings could take us up. I mean, you know, 5,600 still is where we're at. That's 100 points up higher. So that's really not that crazy, especially, you know, with Apple, Amazon, AMD, potentially also, you know, moving NVIDIA at that point. So, you know, it's not too crazy to think we could go up 100 points and that's still being potentially bearish. You know, I don't know if it's going to reject, maybe not, you know, so something to consider there. All right, guys, let's get a little bit more granular here and talk about some day trading levels for ES for this week, or this, this week. Let's get into... Why is it doing this? Okay. So from the day trading perspective, let's go over this a little bit here. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So let me... Okay. So when I was talking about that potential chop, and certainly coming into FOMC on Wednesday, and then what we got Meta on Wednesday after the bell. If I remember correctly, I didn't have much for Monday and Tuesday. Well, Microsoft. It's a high beta name. So Microsoft certainly could do something on Tuesday, although it is a high beta name. Usually it ends up crushing any options gamblers, so I would think that it would probably end flat, more or less, or up like 2% or down 2% or nothing really extreme, but we'll see. So I'm going to watch out, though, because I really want to be careful of this. We've just made such a huge move. Maybe we make a move that high, but, we just made such a huge move, so it's kind of tough. We can certainly make a case what we've got here, right? Shoulder, right? But overall, I could also submit to you here kind of a diamond. Well, let me do this better. Kind of a diamond pattern, right? Something like that. A little false breakout there. Pretty much into the equal highs. So, what am I looking at? Well, am I interested in anything here? Not really. Not that I trade ES that much anymore. But am I interested in anything in that area? No. Yes, if you, you've got 54.87 here at the lows, taking it up to 55.05. Sure, that's not a bad trade. If we're trading down here, looking for this for our full exit, or at least into runners for the potentiality of this. That's not horrible. But we could also see this short, boom, as well. But let's go over the bull case, right? I would be, honestly, for me personally, I am not interested in anything in this area. I'm not really interested in anything. That's not to say that there aren't trades there. Like I said, from 87 to 05, that's definitely money on ES. But I just have to recognize what's going on as far as the structure is concerned. I'm interested if we start seeing this. Acceptance here over 55.20, 55.28, 10 points there. So you're seeing some acceptance hanging out over here. The most acceptance if we start seeing some closes over 55.30. Okay, that would be the most bullish to see acceptance here. This, if we see acceptance here, it's a little less bullish, but it's still good. Right. I see this and I'm looking for about 55.50 again. Okay, we could have some issues in that area. We get over, back test, boom, we're looking at to get real close to 55.60, maybe 55.70. Right, the bear case, we stay below, we trade like this, maybe we do them like this, and then eventually we fade down. Under 54, we see a 30-minute close, maybe even 15-minute close. Under 54.87.50. I think we'd have a pretty good potentiality of at least getting real close to 54.60 area. I'm going to watch this, right? We've got that little here, so we might not get all the way. Maybe it comes to 70, 68, high 68s. But in the 60s, more or less, would be my next target if we start to see acceptance underneath. Right, something like in this area. Then we might start to see something like that. It could either be setting up at that point for an inverted head and shoulders, or we just end up rejecting and come back down and attack the equal lows, maybe bounce, and then come down to these equal lows from last prior week. Right, that's the bear case. Or, of course, again, the bulls could break over, come back, and they'll go ahead and attack that 55.05 again. All right. So that's pretty much all I've got for ES. Let's go ahead and pile through NQ here really quickly and see what we've got from that perspective on the weekly chart. Just taking a look at location. The pullback here a little bit, come on now, a little bit more, a little bit more aggressive, of course, than ES. SMH, the semiconductor space, has really been taking a hit overall. Let's just look at how far we are down from here to here. Oh, at least on NQ, about 10% correction so far here in the NQ. Now, overall, again, what is going on in the trend sequence? Don't worry too much. Right, higher high. Right, we're almost at the equal highs here. I mean, more or less. This is one of your first opportunities if you are bullish into the end of the year. You got to be thinking about swinging long here, in my opinion. Look. This is it. This is the time. Right into this. Boom. Okay, we called out a number for the end of the year. 6,000 for ES, was it, I think? 22,000 for NQ. End of the year. All right. I'm calling it now. We will see. Maybe I should tweet this. I'd only stand with that. And again, these are just kind of, bullshit forecasts. But I would really stand with that. I'm going to make these caveats. We have to hold this structure. Really, I mean, they could still, play games down to here. But, I mean, if we start seeing weekly closes, under 18,400, I'm not going to really like that idea too much more as far as from the risk management perspective. But that being said, this structure holds here. And if we take out these equal highs, I mean, it's without a question that 2,100 would be the next area. I mean, it's not that far. So, if I was really going wild, I mean, actually, I'm going to even say 2,300 end of year NQ. If this holds and we take out this swing high, boom, we're going there. Maybe that would be maybe that would be 5,600 on ES. 50 be 52.50. Have to see, but we'll see. Okay, so what are we getting here from the structural standpoint? Well, they really tried. From the bullish perspective, I really wish they would have closed back inside of this balance here, and they just did not, right? Where did we close? Oh, we didn't close here. We closed real close. This was 1911, basically 1912. So we closed about 15 points below. All right, so that's really what I'm going to be watching here into next week. Can we close back inside of this balance? Now, if we can, I'll be feeling a lot better about our situation, right? Here's our structure. So what I want to see is, of course, closes here for that potential of coming up a bit higher. Now, there's something interesting, and we didn't look at the TPO chart on ES, but I'm going to pull it up here for NQ really quickly. And we can see now what I'm also paying attention to here, as you can certainly see, I mean, we can make that case for the bear flag, of course. Whoops. We had that huge gap down, flag, 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 and then so we've got that scenario, sure. But we do have swing low. What do we put in this last session? Higher. Okay. We were unable to take out session high here. So it's certainly going to be paying attention to that next week. We start trading over these session highs here, right around 19,300, right? I would be a better that we're going to come up. We probably see another 100 points higher. We probably come up and test these equal highs. Right around that 19,400, you got to think about a potential short. However, I will say that if this is broken, this structure here from this gap down day, not much time was spent here in the auction. Very thin structure over, I'm going to make this shot call over 19,400. Gotta be even more bullish. We're going to fill out this profile. We've got the earnings and everything, so I can't say it as confident, but if we didn't have any major data like we do this week, I would be pretty confident that we're going to try to fill out more of this profile. It is thin, unbalanced, and we always talk about this on our videos. The market seeks homeostasis. It seeks balance. So I would not be surprised if we didn't fill some of this profile out. But unfortunately, got this wild week ahead, so it's a bit hard to say what exactly will be our fate. All right, let's break it down here into the daily chart again. Now, here we go. We've got on our previous daily chart that we've been watching. Maybe we can put in a trend here. We've got 3 spots. Sure, why not? Actually, let's look at the weekly uptrends. Where are we right now? Okay, interesting. Still not. Oh, okay. Interesting here. So, you know what? Let's do this in real time. Look at this. Look at this. Let's do this together for the first time. Because we've got some more. Ooh. All right. Very cool. All right. So we'll definitely be paying attention to see what happens in this trend line. Kind of an indecisive close above or below. So we'll watch that to see if we get any closes above this for that potential retest. I mean, is it even crazy to think that at the very least we come back, test these structure lows right here, and according to our range, our candle range, our range theory here, that is about, I mean, again, we have to get over the July 25th highs for this to even potentially happen. But I think that if we do, it would be pretty likely that we're going to come in and test the lows of the 19th, this structure right here. And the lows there would be 19,655. So I'm going to watch that. And, honestly, this huge day here down, I mean, it was pretty orderly, but you could still make the case that there's probably some thin structure in there. We were talking about that earlier on the TPO. So interesting here, though, on NQ, we didn't really have an oversold reading on ES. Here we're starting to get one on NQ, so that is interesting. It's not that severe, but certainly worth paying attention to. All right, so what overall, though, is really going to happen? Now, we have to get over for the bulls. Have to get over 19,400 at the least. Start seeing some daily closes there. We can start to attack that 19,500. Over that, we'll look at 19,600, 19,635, and attack those lows like we were saying earlier, right around that 50% retracement. So I'll be watching that. The bear case is that we consolidate here like so. Maybe we do a look above and fail, and then, right? That's the bear case. Basically staying under 19,400. The high of the 25th, yeah, I mean 10 points away from the figure. So I'm going to call that. That's going to shift a bit of my bias from the daily perspective. Sure, there can be long opportunities, within this range. But you have to understand that daily bias overall, which we would attack these equal lows and down into here, right? So let's go a little bit over here. The bearish idea, we were talking about this area right here to potentially get tested. We did, in fact, see that, as you can see by the price action. Oh, God. By the price action, but buyer stepped in, did what they needed to do. We watching this trend line. I duplicated it. We watching this. Start to break under that, we're certainly going to have some more issues. We'll trade down into 18,600. 18,480. Right, back into this bull flag balance here. We break under 18,480 480 will come in to really probably test that but lower balance. 18,400, maybe just a little bit lower than 18,300 even. Could be the potential target to the downside there. All right, so let's get into the, why is this coming out? Oh, that's why. All right, so let's get into some more of the granular levels here for NQ. Not really interested in too many longs. I mean, you know, in here it's chop. Chop, 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 chop. Yes, there are trades here, right? But, you know, you just have to keep that context in mind. There's been no change here in the hourly trend at all until we get over, we're talking about that 19,400, 19,415. We got to get over that. Then I'm more excited, right? But if this happens under 19,230, gotta be bearish, right? And even here you can see hourly popped up above. You got maybe for this to really accept, gotta be looking maybe for a 4-hour confirmation to really get that potential move to the equal highs here back at the 400, because you can see the hourly even failed. So it's a tricky zone. You can see it here too. Tricky. So make sure you give yourself enough time. We stay under the 400 though. We got to be I mean, for me, I'm looking more towards that bearish consolidation and then to attack these equal lows back down towards basically 1900 flat, the figure there. Right, but the bullish case over 1915, I'm calling for 19,525 over that potentially 19,600, 19,650. We start breaking though, however, for the bear case, we start hanging out under here. We start breaking under the 1900. Well, we'll attack these weekly external liquidity areas, and we'll be down 940 and attack those lows at 18,900. If we start to break that, you know, we're very easily to drop another 100 points. Right, and we kind of looked at that from the daily perspective. But, you know, from the bulls, hell, if we get over 19,525, we'll certainly come up more than likely to that 19,650 area, 55. All right, so let's keep it rolling along here. Let's take a quick look at the Dixie. See where we are. All right, nothing's really happening. Never got over our level. Chop, chop, chop. Nothing burger until this or until this. So nothing really going on too much there. Let's look at TNX, where the yields are. I believe, okay. Still below. We're still now right. We're still below 43, which is the key area we need to stay below. This still bearish consolidation. We gotta really get under this. You can see how it's kind of caused trouble here. Right? Under 41. Go ahead and attack those. 41.80. Gonna go ahead and attack 41.75. Or excuse me, 41.45. And then look maybe for a bit lower into the low 40s. But same thing with kind of the dollar. It's this is just chop. This is nothing. So it's either going to be one or the other. All right, let's get into some of the. All right, here's VIX. Let's get into some of our internals here. Put to call ratio kind of getting up a little bit hot here for the bears. Not totally off sides yet, but we'll watch that. It's getting close to a contrarian signal to go long. Not there yet, as I mentioned. You can see here we were watching that balance, this price action here at the bottom of our balance. Curled up very nicely. Still staying above 15, 40, 75. If we hang out here, more or less bullish consolidation still, and we'll still look to see. We barely got into 20, but I think we have a chance to be able to touch it, if that being the case. But if we break under, then we can cool off, and this would obviously be better for equities, and we'll see more of that bounce. So I'm going to be looking again at that $15.50, $15 handle for that bias, bullish or bearish here on the VIX. But really nice move on the VIX to the upside as we were hanging out down here. So, all right, so let's look over here. How many stocks are trading over the 50 period moving average versus the 200 period moving average here at the bottom? Nice moves on both sides here. I mean, you could even kind of make a little bit, whoops, you could even make a little bit of a case. Wow, that's not the right one. That's not the right one. You could even make a little bit of a case here for kind of a flag coming on, right? Very nice. Broke over the downtrend. Maybe we get a little pullback and push up back up into that 75, 73 reading. But I like this push back up. That is constructive for the market. I'd say that is a bullish sign. It's not over 75 yet, a little bit more lagging with the 200 period moving average, obviously. But obviously, also moving up in the right direction. Everything looking good here. So I do like, this is a bit of a bullish indication for me. I do like what's happening under the hood here. Overall, let's look at new highs versus new lows. A little bit of a bounce. Perfect bounce here on the new highs versus new lows. Right about our 84 reading, 84 half reading. Boom. Now we're coming back into that 205 area. Watch out. Again, I was talking about that potential chop, all things being equal, but we've got all this data. We could watch out for something like this. But with the data, who knows? Maybe we'll come up. Maybe we'll go down here. I don't know which one it's going to be. But either way, just be careful of this. But, I mean, if we get over that 205 here on those readings, we'll come back up and retest basically real close to that 295 reading here on the new highs versus new lows. So, chop, but honestly, from here, I'd just watch out for something like that to potentially happen. Maybe we only get something like this. We do halfway. Then we come back and break over. All right, let's look at the HYZ here. Junk bonds. All right, pulling up, no divergence, kind of flat. Nothing really there for me. Internals on VIX. Pretty interesting here. Getting much closer to getting in backwardation. We saw the big move here into the 105, 103, pulling back a little bit here on the VVIX. Again, kind of same situation. If we see this, we can certainly make some type of a bull flag type of pattern here, but we'd have to see readings over 105 and watch out, more volatility in store. 113, I think we'd see here. Obviously, that put pressure on the markets. This has definitely gone in reverse, so that is interesting for volatility. Bond ratios, let's take a look. Okay, this is interesting. Pulling up here nicely, so we've got low, 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 higher, low. So this is pulled in. This is nice. We're attacking the equal highs now. Could it be a double top here on the 3 to 7? That could be an issue. Bond ratios pulling back here, but above the 50 period moving average. We have to see if this comes into here. Is the 50 and pushes up. That would be bearish. TLT bouncing where it needs to. It's going in the Dow. It's doing the Lord's work here. Beautiful move. Back to the upside. One of the stronger markets. The Dow and Russell. Really been impressive. Right off the 200 here on the transports. Hasn't really neutralized the trend yet, but looking good. And I think that's it. Yes, it is. All right, awesome. So we've made it through here. I appreciate you guys joining me on this weekend's prep video and analysis. Hope you guys find some value. If this is your first time joining the channel and the videos, it would mean a ton to me if you would subscribe to help me out quite a bit. Make sure you turn on that notification bell for all the current subscribers and people that have been with me from the get-go or have been with me for a little bit of time. I really appreciate the support. Really appreciate you joining in. I hope, again, you guys find some value in these videos. Remember what we always say, a prepared trader is a profitable trader. So make sure you trade your plan and plan your trades. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Be safe, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Take care and have a great rest of the evening. Bye-bye.